Hello friends, I am Rob the Dungeon Tutor, or Omnisci on YouTube as well, and today is the 14th of August, which is time for the 14th question from RPGaDay. And this one we're going to call Rob Goes a little bit off the script, because this one, it's Suggestion Sunday. Roll 1d8 plus 1 and tag that many friends and suggest a new RPG to try. I'm not going to do that. Why? I don't do that. That's not my thing. Social media, I very rarely will tag anybody on anything. And especially to bring up a new role-playing game. That's not even fair, because I can't do that. I'm right now in the middle of 2 different campaigns, and none of them are ending anytime soon. So, for the one side that's on a very long-term role-playing game stretch, that would be cruel. The other one, we alternate games periodically anyhow. Right now we're kind of taking a slight break from role-playing games and playing the board game Massive Darkness. But, you know, I already bring up new games, and they've taken whatever I've run for them, and they really have embraced it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up 2 role-playing games for all of you that I have recently encountered. One is a very new game. It was just kickstarted a little earlier this year, I believe. No, I think it was kickstarted at the end of last year, and they published it this year, and it came out, and I have a PDF for it. And the other one is an older RPG that I have a copy, but it's new to me. I've never run it, and I haven't completely read through it yet, so we're going to do that instead. So, and I'm hoping more than, let's see. I'm hoping that more than 7 people see this video. That is my hope right now. So, we're going to go with that. So, first of all, the game that is new, brand new, is called Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland. It's written by a guy named Brian Shutter that I got introduced to through a friend, David, who told me about the game, and he got really excited about the game. And he hasn't run it yet, but he's got me in touch. And the reason I like what they're doing with this game is that the creator is very excited about his game. He's very eccentric when it comes to his game. It's got an odd feel to it. The engine that runs it is the BX Dungeons and Dragons based system. So the mechanics are relatively straightforward. The classes are all based on a post-apocalyptic, glorious 80s, acid punk, post-apocalyptia theme. So your characters are generally pretty violent. The world is pretty hostile. The character classes are all, headbanging, whatever. I haven't read a ton of it, but it is a new game on my horizon, and I have it uploaded to my computer, so I really do have to read it. Brian is so excited about the game that it's... Oh, and also the gods of the Pantheon are 80s wrestlers. The head of the Pantheon, I believe, is Lord Randy Savage. So, with a personality so big that he just kind of draws something like that, Brian just embraces it in his Facebook group. And, honestly, not the worst thing I've ever seen. With mohawks and cassette tapes and VCR technology and stuff like that. But then you have weird magic and other stuff. It's interesting. I'm not sure if it's great. I don't know who he got to edit it, but he's full of excitement and enthusiasm. So, at the very least, I thought it was worth throwing a few shekels at for the PDF. And I will eventually look it over and, make a character, and it might be fun. I don't predict it'll be something that I'll do for a long-term campaign, but I believe in supporting people with a dream. And he has a dream of having his own RPG and having people pay attention to him and it working out. I don't, indie publishers, hey, he got it in print. That's more than a lot of people do. So, Good on him. And he's working on the next expansion, the next edition already, so bless his heart. The other game might be a little easier of a sell, because I know people who have played this as a campaign, and the opportunity came up to get a hold of this particular beast, and this was one of the highlights of the last con I went to, Phoenix Con, because I had an opportunity to buy a couple of out-of-print things, and you know I like out-of-print things. So this particular out-of-print thing, I think a lot of gamers who've been around and seen a lot of role-playing games will go, ooh, that's a good pickup. This is the second edition, I believe, of Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. And this is the idea of taking the world that Conan runs around in. Low magic, and what magic there is kind of nasty, oftentimes tainted with demons and star gods and whatever. And it is on the back of an ancient civilization that you can always find ruins and strange things, probably better left behind, but being adventurers, you'll probably stumble on them. And you're adventurers, so you travel around and fight evil, or it's a lot more shades of gray. So you might not be lily white. You might go out and eventually lead a group of raiders against a nation you don't like, or something like that. And this is a game that you can comfortably do this. This massive tome, and it really is big, is actually following along the lines of the old school games, where this is actually several books that have been all put together in one collection. So into several volumes. And the art in it is glorious black and white. It varies all over because they used numerous artists for this, which is cool. I like spreading the wealth instead of having all just one in-house guy. This one has a lot. And the different volumes are Swords and Sorcerers, Sorcery, so magic has its own, that makes sense. Adventure and Combat, the rules of the game. The Bestiary, that's for the Game Master. Treasure, always nice to have. Hyperborea Gazetteer, so the world. Referee Advice, Weather in Hyperborea, Rogues Gallery, NPCs that you can put in to make it feel like your world has some of the same people and things in it that other people's do. It has a nice map that comes with it too. And an introductory adventurer, the Black Moss Hag of Lug. And again, an introductory setting to the town of Swampgate. There's also the OGL, the Open Gaming License, at the very end of it. Again, when D&D opened up the Open Gaming License, when Wizards of the Coast did that, it made games like this possible. Most of the monsters that you'll find in here, if you've played Dungeons & Dragons, will be fairly comfortable to you. It has a lot of the classics. And I'm guessing they pretty much play out so that if you're used to Dungeons & Dragons, this will feel kind of similar. The difference is largely, I suspect, going to be in the magic, the scaling of the treasure, so you're not going to, oh wow, second level and I haven't found a +1 sword yet, I feel cheated. I don't think it's going to be that kind of a game. But again, I haven't read through it yet, so it looks exciting, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and this book looks intimidating until you realize that it's actually several books. Players are not going to need to look through all of this, and I will be able to give a nice abridged version of this once I learn these rules to my players so that they will be able to slide into this neat little low fantasy game and play it. So that is, and I honestly think too that low fantasy is looking more and more appealing to me. I'm running 2 5th edition games right now, and even though the characters are on the cusp of 3rd level in both games, I'm already starting to have problems with, oh, I've got this build all set up, so I'm going to be able to do, by the time I'm 3rd level, 30 points of damage around. Okay, if that's what really floats your boat. I was hoping your attachment to your character and the things that you've got going in your character's life would be important. But no, you do the damage. Obviously, that's what you're here for. And I really kind of think that a low fantasy setting might help keep the eye off of those levels of performance. More in terms of keeping the party alive. Because those low fantasy settings usually don't have, I wave my hand and all your damage is gone, or, we take a long rest and we'll be fine after 8 hours of sleep. They generally don't run that way. They run where you really, in combat, are trying not to get hurt while you're trying to win, because injuries have consequences. Possible crippling blows and things like that. Also, the game is a lot more kind of coarse. It's down to a certain, degree that was popular in the 70s. So, there's the portraits of some of the monsters that are of the female type and don't necessarily have clothes on. And that's to make them more monstrous, largely. I mean, it's the biggest reason. And not all monsters are going to have human, sensibilities about our attire and exposure. So it's a game I think that's going to have a lot of potential, especially as a nice change of pace when I want to get back into fantasy after all of this Dungeons and Dragonings I'm doing. The next game is going to be something like A Burning Wheel. It's going to be something like Dungeon World. It's going to be something like Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. It might even go down to Barbarians of Lemuria, but we'll see. I don't know yet. I'm still kind of poised on exactly what I want to do, but I've got months and months and maybe years to think about it, if you want to think about it that way. So we'll see. But those are some new games for me. One of them is probably new for you, even if you've heard of Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, unless you were really looking for alternate RPGs on the Kickstarter scene. You might not have missed Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland. So if you are looking for something with a little bit of with a lot of attitude, let's face it, it's a lot of attitude, it might be one for you, especially if you're not looking for one that has far differing mechanics than something else you're looking for. Maybe not even as bleak as a Mork Borg. It kind of steps around some of the bleakness and gothic despair of Mork Borg and the inevitability of it, and instead paints it in a garish, neon, ultra-violent, kind of a pastiche of violence and attitude and spunk and horror, but also comedy. It's kind of weird where it hits. So those are my picks. So I hope this finds you well. You're possibly interested in looking into those, or you have thoughts or opinions, by all means leave a comment below, or kick it up to me on my Facebook group of Dungeon Tutor, or just send me a message at Omnisci on Facebook. That's fine too. I'd love to hear from you, and if you have your own suggestions for an RPG I should look into that I may not have, by all means, leave that in the comments, send it to me. I always am looking for new RPGs, especially if they bring a new experience, a new game element, something of that nature. That's great. That's what I really look for. So, until next time, thank you, my friends, for joining me. I am Rob, and I will see you the next time I make one of these videos. Until then, farewell.